Welcome, welcome, everyone. We're going to get started here in just a minute. Thanks for joining us here. If you wouldn't mind, drop us in the chat where you're joining from today. Would love to hear where everyone is in the world. I know our community spans the globe, so would love to hear from everyone. I'll go ahead and put where I'm from. I'm in Kansas City. Would love to hear in the chat where you all are joining us from. Awesome. See some familiar faces. Hey, Kim. This is awesome. Hi, Hannah, our chapter lead from Dubai. She's in here. Good to see you. Glad you're here with us. Hey, Corey from Madison. Anne Marie, Bradley. Oh, this is awesome. Drop us in the chat where you all are joining us from. I'm joining from Kansas City, Missouri. Christy Tange here, joining from the Bay Area.
Hey, everybody.
Would love to hear where you all are in the world. Drop us a note. Hey, Nikki Ma. Hey, Paul. Paulette. Oh, Sana. All these names. I love this. This is the best. All right, we'll get started in a few minutes. For those of you who this is your first Culture First or Culture Amp experience, many of you have heard about our belonging badges, which is just a great way to help identify yourself of things that maybe you don't see under the surface. And so today I've added some labels to my background here. I've got dog person, athlete, and then since today is all about our increasing our PQ and our understanding our saboteurs, I've added 3 belonging badges that relate to my saboteurs. So I have the people pleaser, the hyperachiever, and the avoider today. So excited to dig into those a little bit more and learn all together.
Welcome, everybody, all over again. It's so fun to see all your comments, to see you all.
Huzzah! Yes, Diana. Huzzah!
All right, we got San Diego to Dubai, everything in between.
LOL. That's funny. Some folks in Melbourne. Oh my gosh, good morning to you. It is so early. I appreciate you being here.
That is an early morning wake up.
Hello from Auckland. Toronto. So good. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Give us a thumbs up if you have taken the PQ assessment before. This is not a required thing to have done beforehand. We'll obviously send out the link, but give us a thumbs up in the chat if you've done this before, if you've taken this assessment. Would love to see. Awesome. Cool.
Got a lot of folks seeing some thumbs ups there.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Again, we'll make sure to share the link for all of that as we get going. But wow, fair amount of you have had a chance to take the assessment. Super cool. It's amazing. All right, if you have taken the assessment, tell us your top 1 or 2 in the chat. Let's see them. And then we'll go ahead and get started in just a few minutes, or just like 1 more minute, I think. We'll give a couple more folks a chance to join us. Hello from Ethiopia. Oh my gosh. Welcome, welcome.
Indeed. We've got Tiana saying victim, hypervigilant here. She's calling it out.
Yeah, she's owning it. I love it. I've added them to my background. People pleaser, hyperachiever, avoider. Here we are. Here we are, folks.
Yes, we're all human, and calling them out is a way to weaken them, actually. Outstanding. Fun to see so many folks, many who are already on this path of self-awareness. Very cool.
All right. Well, Christy, shall we get going? What do you think?
Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to share my screen here. Welcome to our Culture First Global Chapter event. Christy, can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's purple in all its glory.
Amazing. Welcome to our Global Chapter event with SHIRZAD SHAMINE, the power of positive intelligence for you, your team, and your org culture. it wouldn't be a Culture First gathering if we didn't start with our purpose
Mm.
statement. For those of you who know, I'm a giant Priya Parker fan, and it's always important to start with your purpose. So today, our purpose is to uncover the hidden saboteurs that hinder our true potential, to strengthen our positive intelligence, and to foster a culture of well-being and high performance within ourselves, our Culture First community, and our organization. So we believe that to create a better world of work, that starts with us being the change we want to see in the world. So today's hosts and speakers, my name's Jessie Jacob. I am your Senior Community Engagement Manager at Culture Amp, running our Culture First Global Chapters program. We have over 100 global chapters with over 10,000 community members who are on this mission to create a better world of work with us. This event wouldn't be possible if it weren't for Christy Tonge bringing this to our community. She is our San Francisco chapter lead, but she also is the producer and host of the Leaders Get Real podcast, as well as an incredible executive coach, and just so incredibly grateful for her connecting the dots between the PQ community and the Culture First community and making this happen. And then today's speaker, SHIRZAD SHAMINE, the CEO of Positive Intelligence. I'm excited to be joined by him today, and Christy will do a more thoughtful introduction of SHIRZAD in a few moments, but so grateful to have you here. So I'll let you do a proper introduction of SHIRZAD, and I'll just introduce the community. So for those of you, if this is your first experience with the Culture First community, how we think of things at community at Culture Amp is where global people leaders and change agents come together to be inspired by their peers, to ideate and to share best practices on creating a better world of work. This is hard work and we need each other. There's a lot of areas of where community lives. This is obviously our chapters program, but we have a digital Slack community if you're not in there. We have our big Culture First Global, either in-person or virtual experience that happens every year, Culture Amps Conference. We have a Culture First podcast and some amazing research and a newsletter. If you're not a part of that, would recommend. But who are we? We are a group of people around the world united in the belief that a better world of work is possible, and by golly, we are willing to do something about it. Like I mentioned, we have over 100 global chapters now at this point, and we don't dictate what kinds of content that you all discuss within your local communities, but we do think that these 5 core principles are how we ask you to show up at each of our gatherings. And this is the glue that holds us all together in a global community. So our first principle is fostering belonging and acceptance, creating environments where people feel like they can just be heard and seen and appreciated for just being themselves. The second principle is being willing to reflect and grow. This idea of if we're on a mission to transform the future of work, that starts with our organizations, but ultimately that starts with us being the change we want to see in the world. So we are doing the work here today about increasing our PQ and understanding our mental saboteurs and being the change we want to see in the world. Having the courage to be vulnerable. This is for you Brene Brown fans out there. This idea, it takes courage to be vulnerable. And if we're constantly wearing masks, if we give each other permission to just show up and be a little bit more authentic, gives people permission to do the same. Putting learning into action. We don't want you to just consume content here today and have it go in one ear and out the other. We want to be able to apply this to the way that we live and the way that we work. So thinking about what's something you can commit to doing at the end of this and putting this into action. And we'll have a whole follow-up session on your reflections and takeaways too. And last one, connection inside, business outside. So really it's a fancy way of saying that we're here to connect first on the inside as human beings. If that leads to us doing business on the outside, that's great, but that's not the primary purpose of the gathering. Today we're gonna hear from SHIRZAD, and he's gonna enlighten us on PQ and our mental saboteurs. We'll talk about the impact of PQ at work. We'll have some Q&A at the end and some time to reflect on how we're gonna put our learnings into action. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Christy Tonge. She made this all possible. Thank you so much, Christy. I'm just so grateful for you. Thanks for all the work you do for our community, for specifically the Bay Area chapter, and just so grateful for you making this all happen. Thank you. Over to you, my friend.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited for our guest today. And SHIRZAD SHAMINE is the author of the New York Times bestselling book, Positive Intelligence: Why Only 20% of Individuals Achieve Their True Potential and How You Can Achieve Yours. SHIRZAD is former CEO of the largest coach training org in the world, CTI, and he's coached hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams. He's got a BA in psychology, an MS in electrical engineering, and an MBA from Stanford. He's currently the CEO of Positive Intelligence, and his research on saboteurs, drawing on many disciplines, has made a significant impact and contribution in the fields of positive psychology, as well as leadership and workplace culture. So welcome, SHIRZAD. It is so great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Christy. My pleasure.
And I want to add to that introduction, and I'd love to add a personal layer to that intro by sharing how I became connected with Positive Intelligence, or PQ as it's known. And as the head of coaching innovation for a leadership company, and as an executive coach myself, I learned about the free grant that you offer for coaches to experience PQ. And so I enrolled. And I had not expected to be so impacted personally. It was absolutely transformational to discover my own saboteurs. And I wanted to invite you as a guest, not only for your groundbreaking research and framework that is so powerful, but for two other reasons, actually. First, SHIRZAD, it is the way that you model the very thing that you have brought into the world. And in every live session that I've joined with you, you show up authentically. You share not only wise insights, but also your vulnerable struggles in this. You are the real deal. And secondly, for how you've grown a company that is not only immensely successful. You ranked high in Inc.'s 5,000 list in 2023, but also, and especially, you have created a company that is truly culture first. I've gotten involved in the PQ community, and in all my interactions with team members at the company, I've seen firsthand genuine passion and high engagement and a shared belief in your mission to change the world for the better. So that is rare in all of my decades of consulting in organizations and my culture consulting, very rare. And that is an awesome combination to find. So it is an utter delight to have you, SHIRZAD, and excited to jump into some dialogue together.
Thank you, Christy. It is such a joy to be introduced by somebody who actually knows our work deeply. And so I've been looking forward to this. Do you want me to go on and give my introduction to what this topic is?
Let me share. We have the chat
great.
where I want to invite people along the way for this to be interactive and to share what resonates, share reactions, responses, or even, resources or ideas that spark. So with that, SHIRZAD, I want to turn the stage over to you to take it away and share an overview.
Great. Thank you, Christy, and thank you all for spending your time with us. I'm delighted to be talking about the impact of positive intelligence on building cultures that are positive and effective for organizations. And I want to address a key lie that we tell ourselves in most cultures, in most organizations. And the key lie is this, that there is a trade-off between two things, and we need to choose between these two things. One is wellness, and the other is performance. In most cultures, organizational cultures, we hold performance and wellness as a trade-off. Let me give you an example of how that shows up. How often do we hear no pain, no gain? Well, if you believe in no pain, no gain, then what you're saying is if I want to perform well and have gain there, I need to be suffering. There needs to be pain. That's an already limiting lie that I tell myself that says, well, wellness and performance are in opposition to each other. I can't tell you how often I hear from heads of sales in organizations, stress gives me my performance edge. Literally, people thinking that stress gives them their performance edge, that without stress, they're not going to perform well. Once again, holding that I can either perform really well or I can feel well and not feel stressed, but I can't have both. And that is an absolute lie. What I want to show you based on our research is that the exact opposite is true. That actually, in order to optimize performance, you need to maximize wellness. And the only way you can maximize wellness is to maximize performance. Why? Because at the root of both of them are the same exact dynamics in the mind that our research is going to reveal to you. So one way to think about this is that I want to look you in the eye, and you can look anybody in the organization in the eye and say the following thing to them. Every single day, you actively sabotage both your wellness and your performance. Every single day, you're actively sabotaging both your performance and your wellness. That's a bold thing to say, you know, but it's an absolute generalization I can make, because every single person I have ever worked with, including myself, does that. It is a truism. It's something that applies. And so how do we know that we are actively sabotaging both our wellness and performance every day? Well, the way I can tell is if you are spending any time in negative emotions, if you're spending more than a second in negative emotions, in the way you respond to life's challenges, you are actually sabotaging yourself. What do I mean by those negative emotions? Stress is the #1 negative emotion. Stress, anger, shame, guilt, blame, frustration, self-doubt, regret, all of these negative emotions. If you're spending more than 1 second in these negative emotions in responding to life's challenges, you are actively sabotaging yourself. So now that's a bold statement, right? Because you can really challenge me on that and say, come on, you know, if that is so, why do we have negative emotions? And so let's ask that question. I want to begin to ask that question. So you might say, aren't negative emotions sometimes good for you? Don't we need them to protect or improve ourselves and others? And in order to answer that question, I want to ask a related question. The related question is pain good for you? Ask yourself, is pain good for you? And hopefully when you think about that, your answer is going to be, yes, pain is good for me. Why? Because if I put my hand on the hot stove accidentally, if I don't feel any pain, that's dangerous. I'm going to keep my hand on the hot stove and burn to the bone. So yes, absolutely, pain is really good for me to feel occasionally. But here is the really, really, really important question I want to ask you now. How long is it helpful for you to feel your hand on the hot stove before you get the message and you remove your hand? That's the million-dollar question. How long is it good for you to feel the pain? The answer is a split second. Pain is really helpful for you to actually deliver an alert to you that something is wrong, something needs your attention. Beyond that, it's insanity for you to keep your hand on the hot stove. But that's what we do with negative emotions. Are negative emotions good for you? The answer is absolutely, they are good for you. They are critical for you. Why? Because if you don't feel negative emotions, you won't get an alert signal that says something is important for you to pay attention to. So if you're in the middle of a really important project and mistakes and failures are happening, and you don't feel any upset, any stress, any disappointment, any alarm about that things going wrong, then you will not do anything differently, and a bad thing gets worse and worse and worse. So please feel stress, feel upset, feel disappointed, feel frustration and anger, whatever. Feel those things in response to things not going your way, not working well. But for how long? For just a second, to get an alert that says something needs your attention. But then if you stay angry, if you stay disappointed, if you stay frustrated, if you stay in negative emotion, Your brain is tunnel vision in the part of the brain that can only figure out what's wrong and what else can go wrong. That's the negative part of the brain. That's not the part that you need to help you figure out, what do I do now? What do I do with this situation? Things not going right, mistakes and failures happening. You need the positive part of your brain. You need the calm, clear-headed part of your brain to figure out what's really going on here. Be curious about what's happening, gather all the information. That's the part of the brain that's wired for creativity, to figure out, how do I deal with this situation? What are the creative ideas out of this? How do I take calm, clear-headed action? That's all positive part of the brain. So negative emotions, incredibly helpful for a second. Beyond that, if you stay in negative emotion for more than a second, your saboteurs are keeping your hand on the hot stove and complaining why life is so hard. You're sabotaging yourself. That's why I can tell you that you're sabotaging yourself every day, because we all do that, because we spend a lot more than a second in those negative emotions. So in summary, negative emotions are only helpful for 1 second as an alert signal. Staying in negative emotions hurts your ability to see clearly and respond with empathy, curiosity, creativity, or laser-focused action. Negative emotion for more than a second equals saboteur. Saboteur meaning the one that sabotages you. So these saboteurs are the patterns of the mind that keep your negative emotion going beyond the initial second where it's actually helpful. And it ends up sabotaging both your wellness and performance at the same time. So all of this work comes from a research foundation that synthesizes 4 branches of science. The breakthroughs in these branches: positive psychology, performance science, neuroscience, and cognitive behavioral psychology. We have synthesized the latest breakthroughs in these fields with original positive intelligence research all together. Research includes results from literally hundreds of CEOs, their executive teams, and families. This is not an exaggeration. We literally have included hundreds of CEOs in this work. Stanford students, elite athletes, more than 500,000, by now it's more than 1 million participants from 50 different countries. And the work is summarized in my book, Positive Intelligence. The reason that I mentioned that it's translated into 20 languages is because I want you to know this is not North American bias. This research is global. So to the extent so many of you from outside the United States, I want you to know that the research base is global from the start. Now, the most important contribution that we have brought to wellness and performance is it comes from the power of factor analysis. Now, that's one of my favorite types of research. What factor analysis does is that it helps you discover the root cause of things, and therefore it results in radical simplification of whatever that it is that you're studying. For example, if you did factor analysis on colors, you would discover that at the root of thousands of colors, there are really only 3 factors. There are only 3 colors at the root of it all. There is red, blue, and yellow. Now, notice how much easier the job of a painter is if they know that they don't need to have a color palette of 1,000 colors. They just need a color palette of 3 to paint any canvas. That's the massive simplification that we have brought to personal and professional development for figuring out how to optimize wellness and performance through our factor analysis research. And so the result of that research is that there are only 10 negative mental patterns. There are only 10 ways we keep our hand on the hot stove. There are only 10 ways where we go negative and sabotage our wellness and performance. Those 10 ways, we call them the saboteurs. Saboteurs are the ones that sabotage you, mental patterns that sabotage you. And the good news is that most people have a few that they need to concern themselves with. You don't have to worry about all 10. We have you focus on your top few. On the other hand, there are only 5 positive mental patterns that you need to really grow in yourself. We call these 5 powers the 5 sage powers. So we use the word sage to be the counterpart to your saboteurs. if your saboteurs are your false self, the sage is your true self. If the saboteur is the negative self, the sage is the positive self. So there's a juxtaposition of these two inside your mind. And we basically bring this all into neuroscience. My Stanford students used to call this Jedi mind training, this work, and they were big fans of Star Wars, and they would say, you know, Shirzad, what you're really teaching us here is that there's a war inside our mind between the inner Darth Vaders and inner Jedi. And so they like the Star Wars thing going on, but we are not going to use those words. We talk about the tension inside your mind between your saboteurs and your sage, the inner Darth Vader and your inner Jedi. And as you know already from what I said, there are 10 saboteurs and there are 5 sage superpowers. The 10 saboteurs have names like the judge, controller, stickler, pleaser, victim, and so on. The 5 sage powers are empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. You don't need to memorize any of this. It's going to become very clear what I mean by these in just the next few minutes. So a very important thing from the neuroscience of this is that saboteurs live in a different region of the brain than your sage lives. We aren't of one brain. It looks like we have one brain in our skull, but we really have 2 very differently wired parts to our brain. A region where the sage lives, another region where the saboteurs live. So it becomes really important which brain is activated at any given moment. A lot depends on that. And here's a really important thing connected to that. Your saboteurs motivate you through negative emotions in order to keep motivating you to improve, 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 improve. And what are those negative emotions? How do saboteurs motivate you? They motivate you through fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, insecurity. So just think about it. How often have you motivated yourself in your life through fear? A fear of what? Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of looking bad, fear of poverty, fear of not belonging. I mean, just on and on and on. How much fear and stress and these negative emotions have been pushing you to get better and improve yourself. That's the saboteur way. On the other hand, the sage in you motivates you through positive emotions. It pulls you through positive emotions like empathy, curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose. A very different way of getting yourself out of bed, a very different way of motivating yourself. And if you're running a company and if you're wanting to set the right culture, the question I want to ask, I want you all to be asking yourself is, in our culture, do we motivate through fear, through negative emotions, or do we motivate through positive emotions? Because the answer matters a lot. Are we a culture where the saboteurs are running the show or the sage is running the show? And the answer makes a huge difference. And in particular, the difference it makes is that the sage helps you to generate your highest performance and sustained wellness versus the saboteurs. They might generate high performance, but they do not generate wellness. I know, we all know a lot of very quote unquote successful people who perform well, but they are not really happy. They are not experiencing wellness. Why? Because that saboteur region of the brain knows nothing about happiness. If that region of your brain, when it's activated, if you are pushing yourself to perform through your saboteurs, you can get some performance, but you cannot feel wellness because that region of the brain just cannot generate emotions of wellness. It cannot feel peace. It cannot feel true empathy. It cannot feel true joy in a sustained way. As opposed to when you have activated the positive region of your brain, all of our research shows, and not just my research, but a lot of third-party researchers, that your optimal path to highest performance is through the positive brain. And oh, by the way, not only would you perform higher, but every step of the way you are feeling greater wellness, greater happiness, greater peace, greater empathy, greater connection. So clearly we want to build a culture that is a sage culture, so you maximize both performance and wellness at the same time, not just try to maximize performance, because that will not be sustainable and you will not achieve the highest possible performance that way anyway. So all of this brings us to a simple 3-step process that we basically recommend based on this research to any individual that wants to really make this practical. One is you got to learn how to intercept your saboteurs, saboteurs being your negative mind. Keep watching out for it, and when it shows up, intercept that part of your brain. And so when you see it, say, oh, there goes my saboteur. No, 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 no. I'm not going to trust the voice in my head. I'm not going to trust this feeling. I'm not going to trust this voice. That is my saboteur talking. I need to shift. And how do I shift? You learn to, we teach you these 10-second exercises that help you to power up the sage part of your brain. Remember, your sage brain is a different part of your brain. So we teach you these 10-second neuroscience-based techniques to activate the positive region of your brain and have access to your sage now, so that you can do step 3, which is so that you can choose a sage response, a positive response, rather than keep your hand on the hot stove and keep feeling negative emotions because, oh my God, things aren't working the way you need them to work. So it's a very simple 3-step process that we have people practice, and literally rewires the brain within 6 to 8 weeks. You can actually see in MRI imaging brain rewiring in such a way where there is increased gray matter in the regions of the brain where the sage lives, decreased gray matter, actual atrophy in the region of the brain where the saboteurs live. You rewire your brain as you do this practice relatively quickly. And last thing I want to say, just to have this overview, and then we can get into Q&A, is the saboteurs. As we look into the saboteurs and intercepting them, there is a saboteur that every single person has, and it is the judge. This is the universal saboteur. And the judge is the one that has 3 modes: constantly finding what's wrong with you, what's negative, not positive about you, constantly finding what's wrong with the other person. So judging yourself, judging others, but also judging situations and circumstances, constantly finding what's wrong with your current situation and circumstance, and having you feel bad about all of this. So you're constantly made to feel bad and upset about things not being right with you, with others, or with situations and circumstance. That gets our entire negative response going. And we all have a version of the judge saboteur. And we can talk, if you wish, about a lot more detail about the judge. And what's the alternative? The alternative, the sage, looks at things not working with you, with others, with the situation or circumstance, but doesn't have you beat up yourself or beat up other people, has you clearly see what's not working with a calm, clear-headed mind. That's discernment, not judgment. And then based on that, have you choose how to respond. So you're not feeling bad all the time. You're actually looking at things as they are and choosing what to do about them, to take any challenge or problem and even convert it into a gift and opportunity. So an entirely different way of approaching challenges. Everything can be converted into a gift and opportunity is the discernment of the sage. After the judge gets your negative response going, then it brings in one or more of its buddies. We call these the accomplice saboteurs. That's what you get in the saboteur assessment, the other saboteurs, and you get a sense of which of these is strong in you. And they are controller, hyperachiever, restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, and avoider, victim, and hyper-rational. We all have a few of these that are messing with us, and it is really critical for us to build cultures in which it is completely acknowledged and understood that, hey, we all have saboteurs. Let's not hide away from them. There's nothing wrong with us for having saboteurs. Let's really face the fact that we have these and ask ourselves, how do we reduce the power of these saboteurs so they're not running us, so that we intercept them and shift to our sage. And that is something that we have done in our culture. As Christy said, we walk the walk on this. In our culture, we all discuss our saboteurs. Everybody knows my saboteurs. Everyone knows each other's saboteurs. We hold ourselves accountable for our saboteurs. We absolutely get hijacked by our saboteurs, including myself. But as we do, we recover much faster, and then we clean up the mess that our saboteurs created. And we even help each other out. The moment somebody's beginning to get hijacked, we call for a little bit of a break. So we do those 10-second exercises to shift brain activation. So this is a way of life for us, and it has resulted in a culture of sage contagion, so that when we come into our team meetings, we bring out the best in each other, the sage, because there's a contagion that happens if we are in sage mode. If the leader especially is in sage mode, it's much easier for everybody to shift to their sage. If the leader shows up in saboteur mode, you trigger everybody else's saboteur. So the question is have we built a culture that there's a saboteur contagion where we literally bring out the worst in each other? Or have we built a culture where there's a sage contagion where we literally bring out the best in each other? And it's all neuroscience-based, because depending on which part of your brain is activated, because due to mirror neurons, other brains around you try to mimic your brain activation, especially as a leader of the group. People in the team will mimic where you are. If you're in sage, others more likely go to stage. If you're in saboteur, others more likely go to saboteur. So there are a lot of implications of what I just shared in terms of the cultures that we build. And notice my initial premise, which is in the sage culture, if you build a sage culture, you're not choosing between wellness and performance. You don't have to have a trade-off, because in order to maximize performance, you need to learn to intercept saboteurs and go to sage. In order to maximize wellness, you need to keep intercepting saboteurs and go to sage, because wellness comes from all these positive emotions of the sage. Therefore, if your culture focuses on bringing out the sage in everybody and helping quiet the saboteur in everybody, it's a culture that maximizes wellness and performance at the same time. As a matter of fact, the only way you can truly maximize performance is to maximize wellness and vice versa, because for both, you need to decrease the power of the saboteurs and increase the power of the sage. So, Christy, that's hopefully a good overview. And I would love for you now to help me double click on the next level of exploration of this.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. There is so much there, so much rich stuff there. And I've been seeing a lot of resonance from our live listeners on so much of what you are sharing. And one thing that I want to dive in on immediately in just reflecting is what you've been saying is this lie that it's a trade-off between wellness and high performance. And that resonates so much with culture champions who are all listening live right now as well, that's exactly what we see is people thinking that that's a trade-off. And it tracks so much other thought leaders that are bringing this forth as well. Just last week, Amy Edmondson, who, is the author of The Fearless Organization, and she's sort of the guru around psychological safety, and psych safety being at the heart of wellness and the positive environment that you're talking about. And she has been talking about that same trade-off, that it isn't just build psychological safety. It isn't just focus on that wellness environment, but it's in combination with high performance standards. And she just posted colleagues at Wharton Business School as well, Peter Capelli, who is writing about that distinction. So powerful to call out that lie that you are describing, and really not stand for looking at it as a trade-off, and that seeing that the wellness, that focus can fuel the high performance and create a high-performing culture. So let's dive in. You often talk about the fact that success is 20% insight and 80% muscle. So say a little bit about that.
Yeah, all my life I was chasing transformational change for myself and reading books and saying, oh my God, this changed my life, going to workshops and saying, oh my God, look at me operating fearlessly now. I'm so empowered and excited. I've changed. And then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I would be right back to my old self. And it was so discouraging. Why do all of my attempts at significant change keep fizzling and only generate initial euphoria? And I finally realized the reason is that during, say, those workshops, I had, without knowing it, I'd been in an environment that had shifted my brain activation to where the positive part of the brain was and all of those awesome stuff. And because I wasn't in those environments now, my brain activation went pretty much back to the old self, which was mostly saboteur stuff. So at some point I realized that, you know what, all of my bad habits of the mind, quote unquote bad habits, the self-sabotage stuff, they're automatic habits of the mind. Why are they automatic habits of the mind? The automatic habits of the saboteurs? Because by having done them over and over and over again, there are neural pathways in my brain that create the automatic response. And those neural pathways, I call them the muscles of your saboteurs. Your saboteurs have been doing the same thing over and over and over again. They built pretty powerful muscles, neural pathways. You don't fight muscle with insight of reading a book or going to a workshop. You need to fight muscle with muscle. What's this muscle over here? New neural pathways of doing things in a positive sage way to counter the old saboteur way. You do not do that in a workshop or by reading a book. You got to do that through daily practices. So I have become really clear about this. And so what I talk about is often I have a chart that says 20% transformational change, 20% inside, 80% muscle building. Muscle building is about daily practice to build neural pathways. And I am honest with clients. I look them in the eye and say, if you want true transformation, our research shows that you need at a minimum of 15 minutes of practice for a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks to build enough neural pathways in the positive region of the brain to create automatic positive responses to counter the automatic negative responses. And if you're not serious about doing that kind of daily practice, don't kid yourself. You're going to get excited as a result of this talk or workshop or book, and you're going to go back to old behavior. Let's stop lying to ourselves. Let's stop lying to ourselves. If you're serious about transformational change, you've got to commit to daily practice that rewires your brain. It's as simple as that, which is why we call our work mental fitness. It's fitness. Fitness means you go to the gym and work out. You would never go to physical fitness. You'll never go to a week of, physical training and all of that stuff and come home and say, honey, I'm fit for life. I am fit for life. Look at these muscles. I'm fit for life. You come home and say, I'm inspired to keep exercising every day because I see the impact of it on me. So hopefully we'll get you inspired to do, mental fitness exercises every day.
Yes. And I love how it makes it so real. You call them PQ reps, just like you got to do reps in the gym. You got to do mental fitness PQ reps. And it's fabulous, as I've seen, truly taking the insights that we get from great books and great thinkers and so on, and really building muscle. And one of the executives I coach, she's at a biotech company, and she has been discovering her saboteurs, and we're working with that. And she literally now looks at her calendar for the week, and she color codes meetings in red that she knows are going to be the ones that trigger her, that these are going to be, this group is tough, or the kind of issues that we're going to discuss are tough and it can trigger me. And so she codes them red, and that tells her, I'm going to do more PQ reps that morning.
Awesome.
I'm going to do
Awesome.
PQ reps before that
Yeah.
meeting. And she's seeing what a powerful difference that makes, building the muscle.
Christy, let's tell me what PQ reps are. So PQ stands for positive intelligence quotient. So instead of saying positive intelligence, which is the name of this body of research, we abbreviate it to PQ, and then a PQ rep. If you want to build dumbbell muscles, you do dumbbell reps to build say bicep muscles. You do dumbbell reps, but to build the positive region of the brain, that muscle, what you do is PQ reps, and PQ reps are these 10-second things you do. So let's try let's try one, right? Let's try it together. So let's do a PQ rep together, which activates the positive region of your brain. So please take 2 fingertips and gently rub 2 fingertips against each other with so much attention that you can feel your fingertip ridges on both fingers. So gently rub your fingertips against each other with so much attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. You got that, right? That was just 10 seconds. And that was 1 PQ rep. And if you had your head under a fMRI machine, you would have noticed that even with just this 10-second thing you did. You ever so slightly quieted the region of your brain where all those saboteurs with their anxiety and upset and shame and guilt and all that stuff live, and ever so slightly activated the sage part of your brain. Now, of course, one PQ rep will not change your life, but if you do a bunch of them, it actually adds up. And in the example you said, Christy, before my most important meetings, before this thing with you, before major speeches, before anything that truly matters, I do a bunch of PQ reps to charge up the positive region of my brain where their sage lives, so that my sage will be charged up and ready to go. And I have access to the wisdom and brilliance of my sage, and have quieted my saboteurs so that they don't mess with me during that session.
Wonderful. And I love that phrase. These saboteurs mess with us. And we can see that every day in organizations, right? We all see, oh my gosh, the politics or the posturing, all that. Those are saboteurs gone awry. And so let's just talk about saboteurs for a few minutes. Perhaps you want to share yours, and also share, some of the ways that they flare up for you. And I'll just share personally for me, my top three are restless, pleaser, and controller. And I can see all the time now how these mess with me. Just yesterday, the controller saboteur reared its ugly head. And on the positive side, when I'm in my highest self, my sage is I'm a change agent. Like, that's a positive super strength, right? Is being able to, see change possible and help to forge it. But when I am in saboteur, and when that kicks in, I grip too tightly and I want to make change happen. And in that call yesterday with a colleague, they were really frustrated with me pushing too hard and taking too much on my shoulders. And it was damaging to our relationship. Yeah. It really revealed that to me. Whereas I had this positive intent, like, I see what's possible and we can, we can change things. And yet it was damaging. And it helped me to see, that's where my controller started taking over, rather than the positive sage self of, making an impact for the better.
That's a great example, Christy. So one way we talk about saboteurs is that saboteurs, if you tell me what your saboteurs are, I tell you what your greatest strengths are, because one way to think about saboteurs is the saboteur is the one in you that takes your greatest strength and overuses and abuses that great strength and turns it into your greatest weakness. The example you just gave, Christy, my daughter was born with as a natural born leader. I mean, she has so much, charisma and goal orientation and ability to, the confidence to step into things and lead things forward. So that force of personality, all of those are incredibly important, powerful, strengths that she has, and they can absolutely serve when they are used under the command of the sage. Under the command of the sage, she knows how to ask questions from other people, feel empathy towards them, bring them into collaboration, have them feel aligned, connect the dots between where you want to go and what their needs are. So people feel included and people feel aligned with you and led by you. That's when this power is used in the positive sage mind, the change engine. It's an incredible strength of leadership. But when she's in controller mode, she's locked into that goal. I'm going to get there, hell or high water. Who gives a shit what you're feeling and how you're experiencing right now? So bulldozes through people and damage people all on both sides of the road, people feeling controlled, people feeling resentful. So she's very clear about controller mode versus sage use of that power. And so when we talk to leaders who are the controller saboteur, we say, you don't need to let go of that strength. Have the sage use that strength to make sure it's done in a way that's connected to people you're trying to lead. And notice that when it's disconnected from them, then it is the controlling way that sabotages things. In my case, one of my greatest natural strengths is I am very empathic and caring. I was a very sensitive, empathic kid from the time I was born. Great strength that makes me really good as a coach in the work that I do. It's part of the reason why I'm so successful. However, taken too far, it becomes the pleaser saboteur. where I can't say no when I really want to say no. I won't draw the boundaries where I should draw boundaries. And I told my kids when they were growing up, hey, my greatest weakness as a parent for you is when I go to pleaser mode and don't hold boundaries and give and don't say no and sometimes all that stuff. And the pleaser dad is not very helpful to you eventually. So help me not be as much of a pleaser mode. So basically, the whatever you look at, some of the other, very common things in business, one of the saboteurs is hyper-rational. Is the rational mind really helpful? The rational mind is incredibly helpful. Awesome tool. But when is it hyper-rational and damaging things? When you're in a relationship conflict with somebody and that person is sharing all sorts of emotions and how hurt they feel and all of that stuff. And instead of really empathizing with their feelings and responding in turn, you go to rational mind. Let me fix this. We can do 3 things if you do, whatever, right? So all of that emotion feels unheard. The other person feels that you really did not hear a word they say because you did not respond to their emotions. You are not showing any emotions. So the rational mind is a horrible tool to use when you're in tension in relationships, conflict is happening. People end up feeling unseen, unheard, uncared for. You devastate relationships at business and at home, right? So hyper rational, not very helpful. Rational, awesome, when there's a situation where somebody is asking you what's 375 times 22, that's a rational question. I don't go to my emotions, but when I'm dealing with relationship conflict, I do want to check with emotions of my own and the other. So we can go through every one of the saboteurs and say it's a power that's being overused, and let's have our sage use that power, and let's our saboteur not abuse that power.
Wonderful. And it's just so impactful on a personal level as we go into that whole journey of self-discovery and doing the PQ reps and seeing the transformation of how we show up day to day. And let's take it up. Let's take it all the way up to the culture level. And when we think about individuals experiencing this kind of transformation and grounding and how it changes the environment that they're in. So say a bit about what a culture looks like when collectively leaders have built muscle and what you've seen.
I tell you an example. One of our vice presidents, when he interviews people to join us, he says, when I decided to join SHIRZAD, I was in an interaction with him and he started going negative and frustrated, and he stopped himself and he said, oh my God, I am getting hijacked here. Give me a second. He did some PQ reps and he shifted his tone completely. He said, when I saw the CEO of a company hold himself accountable for going negative and shifted, I said, wow, this is the company I want to belong to. So now how does it show up? Let me give you an example. An example is, first of all, everybody coming to the organization does our app-guided positive intelligence program. That's 6 weeks of building up their SAGE muscles and PQ reps and weakening their saboteurs. So everybody learns the operating system. And then we say, we are going to care enough about each other to hold each other accountable for continually growing SAGE and continually weakening our own saboteurs. How do we do that? One of the ways we do that is everybody in any meeting is empowered to notice when emotions begin to go negative, meaning when we are beginning to go down the spiraling of saboteur contagion. Anybody in that team, regardless of rank, can say, can we please take a 2-minute PQ break? And in the last couple of months, a few times in meetings I have been running, I personally start getting frustrated and going down a negative path, and somebody in the meeting said, can we please take a 2-minute PQ break? And our promise to each other is we always will say yes to that. So I would say, okay, well, of course we're going to do 2 minutes PQ repping. And after 2 minutes of PQ repping, I have completely recognized I was beginning to go down the saboteur contagion effect, and I've now shifted to SAGE. So that whoever called for a 2-minute break saved me from getting hijacked by my saboteurs and make a mess of things. So I've always turned back to them and said, thank you. Thank you for that invitation. And so that's just an example. When people come to our culture, the message to them is, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. All your life you've thought there's stuff wrong with you because you have there's stuff with you that's not working. Welcome to the story that says we all have saboteurs. Our CEO has saboteurs. Everybody in the company has saboteurs. We're going to hold ourselves accountable for that. No shame and blame for us having saboteurs. Welcome to the human story that says we all have saboteurs that we can work on. And the sage in each of us is absolutely gorgeous and stunning. So let's create a culture where we bring out the sage in each other and fall in love with each human being, because we are that worthy of love and respect. So we bring out the best in all of us. And that's one of the main reasons that people are so excited about, working with the organization, because it's not just how we want to change people's lives outside. Our first commitment is walk the walk. A leader needs to model what it is that we want a team to do. So I need to hold myself accountable for this continual growth towards the stronger sage, intercepting my saboteurs. And that modeling has everybody else say, this is really cool. I want to do some of that too. And it becomes contagious.
Absolutely. A leader going first, a leader modeling this gives everybody else the permission to go there too and talk about transforming the culture. Well, we could talk about this for hours. I want to jump right in though and get into listeners enjoying listeners wanting to hear something tangible. Within the next 24 hours, SHIRZAD, what is something a listener can do to take advantage of some of these insights?
Well, I would say be the change you want to see in the world. So if you want to bring this to your organization, bring it to yourself first. How do you bring it to yourself first? The first step is go do the saboteur assessment. It's a 5-minute online saboteur assessment. It's on positiveintelligence.com / I believe assessment. And when you go there, you get the 5-minute online saboteur assessment. It's free. And based on that, begin to realize how you self-sabotage. Hopefully inspired by that, you'll bring it to teams that you associate with, you'll bring it to your family. It's a really fun dinner conversation. And so you begin to shift, begin to see the change, be the change you want to see in the world. Beyond that, we offer app-guided positive intelligence program where within 6 weeks, people do daily practices because it's hard to do it by yourself. The app will guide you through every single day what muscle to focus on, 1 whole week on building PQ techniques that you saw, a couple of weeks on working on just saboteurs, a few weeks on the sage powers. So that would be, beyond that, that would be the next step in bringing to yourself and your organization if you wish to make this something that's sustained.
Fabulous. So first, take the quiz, so to speak. Find your saboteurs, and that's actually at positiveintelligence.com/saboteurs. Okay. And there's so much great stuff, whether you're a coach and you're listening and you want to know about the free grant program that SHIRZAD is making available to coaches. You're an HR or people leader or a business unit leader, and you want to think, how do I bring this into my teams? You can go to positiveintelligence.com, and on my podcast, leadersgetreal.com, you're also going to see specifically where each of those listeners, where you can go to really know how to go the next step. But with that, I want to, right before turning it to Jesse, SHIRZAD, just share a word about your vision, what you see possible if we go on this journey together.
So I know that a lot of us feel some resignation about the state of the world, how much there's hate and war and conflict and all of that stuff. And we feel a level of resignation about it. And I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine what happens to our world if we just get 1 generation of kids grow up with this positive intelligence, mental fitness that I was talking about. If just 1 generation of kids is raised recognizing that they can't trust every voice in their head, that there are such things like the saboteurs, that there is such a beautiful thing as their sage, that there is a ability to build self-command and shift brain activation from one to the other. What happens to that kid and for that kid's ability to withstand bullying, to withstand, bad parenting or flawed teaching or any of that stuff? How would those kids end up treating each other? when those kids grow up, what kind of politicians would they elect, and what kind of a global society would they end up building? Our entire planet will be healed and transformed if just one generation of kids grew up with the mental fitness that I am talking about right now. So please help dream with me and imagine a world like that. It is possible, one person at a time, and be a part of enabling that change. And it starts with be that change yourself. Intercept the negativity of your saboteurs within yourself, build the power of your positive self, and then spread that fire. It is possible for us to do this work and build a better planet.
Wonderful. Well, this has been so rich, and that's what we're all after. We're after trying to build a better world of work and trying to become our best selves individually and together, being able to solve the greatest problems that we're facing and create a better world. So thank you, Shirzad, for sharing your wisdom and taking time today.
Awesome, awesome. Christy, it's really a pleasure getting to know you. You are a deep thinker and a kindred spirit, and very sincere in the cause. I really appreciate you spreading the word. It has been very meaningful to me.
For me as well. Thank you, Shirzad.
I consider myself among kindred spirits following a similar path in life. So it's a real honor to be with you. Take good care of yourself.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wonderful. And back to you, Jessie, our host, for some closing.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Shirzad, so much. This was awesome. We've already got some really cool momentum going. Apparently, we're going to host a book club about this. So really looking forward to digging in a little bit deeper on the content of all of this. You said the words that we are constantly be the change you want to see in the world, saying here at Community. So thank you for your time. Just some closing updates for those of you that are like, what is this CultureFirst community? What's going on? Christy's going to host a follow-up session to this. So we'll send information about that next week if you want to talk about how you've applied the concepts of this to your life and to your work. We're going to host a follow-up. We also have an upcoming event on unwrapping the 8 play personalities for cultivating a playful culture to check out with our global chapter. If you aren't part of a local chapter, check those out at chapters.culturefirst.com to keep the conversation going. I know some of you are in the chat saying, is there one in Canada? Is there one in Atlanta? Yes, there is. So let's help you find your people. If you're not in our Slack community, check that out. Over 20,000 people sharing ideas and resources and best practices in there if you want to keep the dialogue going. All of our content from CultureFirst Global is on demand if you want to check that out. And last cool announcement is that our CultureFirst community got nominated from CMX. This is like the Grammy Awards for culture or for community builders. So please, if you wouldn't mind going and voting for us, we would really appreciate you. And our very own Demario Bell, community manager, has been nominated for Community Professional of the Year. So we're just super proud of all of the momentum we have going here at Community. So thank you all.
And also, Jessie wanted to just put a link in the chat. So for those of you who are hungry for more, as she mentioned, we're doing a follow-up next Tuesday at noon Pacific or 3 East Coast. And that is going to be a chance. Take the quiz, the assessment takes a few minutes before then, and come join up to have some really rich dialogue together. And I'll stick that link in the chat.
Love it. So we'll send all these resources out in a follow-up email, and stay tuned for all of that. Would love to have everyone just drop one word to describe how you're doing at the end of the session today. Maybe it's a word that you're feeling, maybe it's a word that resonated for you, but just drop us in the chat. What's one word? Inspired, relief, positive,
determined, curious, sage. I love it. Invigorated.
Oh, slayed. Yes, so good. Thank you all for being here. Cheers to co-creating a better world of work, everyone, and being the change we want to see in the world. So thanks so much. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.